Coach, it seems like this program has a history of having a trio of offensive stars, going back to the Sanders days, and even last year with Dez and Zach and Kendall. How do you think the group you have now with Brandon, Justin, and Kendall compares to some of those past groups?
Well, it's hard to make those comparisons. You're talking about NFL Hall of Famers and first-round picks, and so I know they're good players. I said this before the season started, that in my opinion, Kendall Hunter is as good as anybody in the country at his position. That's just my opinion. And whether he lived up to that or not this year was up to him and how he wanted to come back and fight through the situation he had last year. I think he's played pretty well. Justin Blackman is making a lot of plays and is a very explosive player. And he's got a chance to really become a good college football player. He still has some areas to improve in. We talk about it every day on Sunday in our meetings, and he don't get me wrong now, he's good, and I wouldn't trade him for anybody else, but he still has a lot of room for improvement. And Whedon is getting better each week, but he's not the finished product either. He still has a ways to go, and he's got areas to improve in. But the good news is one of them's going to move on and go have a chance to go play in the NFL, and I feel like that he's developed himself to where he'll be prepared to do that. The other guys, they'll still be here with us, and they'll continue to get better and improve and develop our program.
Mike, was there ever a point when Whedon wasn't playing that you questioned if he was ever going to make it here? Maybe because of practice?
A couple years ago?
Yeah. When he was
No, he I've said this before, but he's kind of like a cat that's astray, and you put some milk out, and he just keeps coming back every day. Well, he just kept coming back every day, and it didn't look very good in practice, and he wasn't into it mentally, and we'd jump on him, and he'd just kind of turn and walk off, and later on that day go out and hit a few drivers at the driving range and come back the next day. I mean, that's just his temperament. That's what his body language was. But he was never in a situation where we felt like he wasn't going to make it. He was always in off-season workouts. He lifted hard. He performed. He ran. We tried to make things tough on him, and he wouldn't leave. But he never really did anything to make us think that he was going to be any good.
Does his beard right now remind you of a stray cat?
Yeah. They've all got. I've never really been a big fan of that either, but I'm buying into whatever they want to do right now.
When are you going to get involved in this no shave?
And I'm not into that stuff. I used to have some things that I thought that you had to do, each week in order to win. And last year I got so busy in play calling and stuff, and I forgot to do some of them. We still won, so I figured, well, you didn't have to do it anymore. And so I'm kind of gotten over all that now. I think if they practice well, got a better chance than if they don't shave.
Got a lot of yards offensively, forcing a lot of turnovers defensively. Are you happy with where your team is as a physical football team?
We're getting better. John, we're not there yet. It's very important that we continue to be a physical football team in all areas, and we talk about that, and we need to improve in that area. And I would expect for us to be a more physical team at this time next year than we are now.
Coach, what are you doing to keep the players on a game-to-game basis and not looking ahead towards BCS, stuff like that?
Well, I mentioned that earlier in the question, very similar to that, in that they're not really good enough to do that. I mean, we have to practice well, we have to have good game plans, and we have to be in the right frame of mind in order to win games. This team has got some talent, and there's some players that are stepping up, but this is not the most talented team that we've had here. That doesn't mean you can't win more games, and that doesn't mean you can't perform at a high level, because chemistry is involved, toughness is involved, a lot of other areas that are very important. But I think they understand the importance of focus and practicing well in order to give yourself a chance on Saturday.
Do you feel that Brandon, with his age and maturity and everything, is a really big part of keeping the rest of the team in that mindset?
Yes, I do. I think his maturity and his toughness has provided great leadership for our team and for our offense.
Coach Overson's been good all year long, but that may have been the best offensive showing. It just seemed like every play he dialed up for. Just talk about what he's doing and how impressive that was for you to watch on Saturday afternoon.
Well, there's days where things just work, and we've had good game plans, and sometimes the fit's just not right. or the structure of the defense changes, or offensively, you just don't execute the way you'd want to. But most everything that we dialed up Saturday worked. And when you have a day like that, it's a lot of fun. Things just go in your way.
That's something you can build off of, though, going down Austin. I mean, everything's are clicking. It makes it a little bit. Does it make it easier, I guess, in practice and game plan? Say, hey, these things are working. Let's keep doing the things we're doing.
Well, he's pretty hard on our players each practice, and I'm going to guess that he's going to stay the same. And I think they do a good job of telling them what they're doing to be productive, and but then also critiquing them in all areas. And I would say that it would stay the course this week.
Coach, your offensive line's been really consistent all year. How instrumental has that been in your offensive success?
Well, they've been a big factor. Probably the most surprising group or position on our team, in that you had 4 guys that were brand new and 1 guy that only played 8 games last year. And for them to be as effective as they've been up to this point is pretty impressive. They haven't dominated anybody. They're not wearing people out. We've had linemen here over the last couple of years that dominated the other team. They have not done that. They're covering guys up. They're playing with good effort. Their cardiovascular system has been very good. They've played hard. I'm really excited about the group. They like each other. They play well together. Their communication's good. It's exciting to think you've got them all coming back next year.
So given what you said about the stray cat part of Brandon before spring practice, did you even know what you had in you?
I knew I had a big guy that had a strong arm that could throw really well, throws a nice spiral, and he's accurate. That's all I knew.
That's it.
I didn't know anything about him as a competitor. I didn't know anything about his toughness, his leadership skills. I mean, we didn't have any answers in that area.
That's why you didn't start that Colorado game last year, is because of his practice habits.
He didn't. He did zero to ever make us think he could perform last year in the last 2 years. I mean, we tried to give him the job for the last 2.5 years here, and he just never took it.
So is this the biggest turnaround you've seen of someone like that?
It's pretty good. The other guy is, Blackman wasn't a guy that people talked about much, and he's obviously fared very well. Those 2 guys have been instrumental in what we've been able to accomplish, and there was some unknown. Blackman showed signs in the spring of making pretty exceptional plays, but Whedon threw it around pretty good in the spring. We kind of knew what we had with Kendall. Both those guys have been guys that I would say are playing considerably better than what people would have thought.
Well, Brandon said in the past that, it was boring sitting on the bench. You never had to sit on the bench, really. So you have a greater understanding now, maybe how a player can switch the light on when he does get changed?
Yes and no. Yes being he's given us that understanding, and no being that I've seen other players that performed much better than he did until they had their chance, like Zach Robinson. Zach Robinson performed well from day one when he was here. He just never became the starter until a certain point, until he took the job. Brandon just was, sitting around chewing sunflower seeds. I mean, he just never really did anything to make us think, wow, we've got to put that guy in the game.
Mike, do you think part of that's an older guy and a guy who's played professional sports, has played for a living, sort of a different mentality when they get to this point in their sports career, or no?
Well, his practice habits from the last 3 years, you got me on that one. In most cases, you would be concerned as a coach because guys that end up being real players, they practice well all the time. And well, let me put it this way. The system we were in the last 3 years didn't really benefit him anyway. So that could have played a factor in it.
Morency came out of a similar situation. Was he different in practice?
Mm-hmm. Morency was a good practice player and made plays in scrimmages and in live situations to make you feel like that he had to be in the game.
Texas may be 4-5, but they still have the talent to scare you on both sides of the ball when you watch them on film, don't they?
They still have guys that can run and make plays, skill guys that can make you miss, and they've got defensive guys that run well sideline to sideline. corner they have, I think it's number 3. Brown, is he number 3? I mean, he may be as good as anybody in the country, in my opinion. From what I see, he's pretty good.
Mike, you talk about how the offense, previous offense didn't suit Brandon especially. How much did the offensive change going after somebody like Overson? How much was that trying to fit something Wheaton did well? Or were you looking more longer term?
Well, there's 2 things. One, I wanted to find, and I'm speaking just obviously my opinion now, I wanted to find who I thought was the best play caller out there, because I think play calling is a bigger factor than the scheme that you're involved in. And then secondly, I wanted it to be able to fit something that Brandon could bring to the table. And I knew that he could throw the ball really well, and he had a strong arm, and that he had some limitations running the football. And those were the 2 main reasons.
So what do you think when he goes running around on the field now? 3 rushing attempts the other day.
Yeah, I talked to the team last night, Sunday night. I wouldn't necessarily say he was running around on the field, but he did a nice job, and he does need to do more of that. Now I want him to slide, and I want him to get down, but when we have the opportunity to get 6, 8, 10, 12 yards, and then convert a first down or score a touchdown or whatever it may be, those discussions have taken place over the last month. And in fact, about a week or 2 ago, I said, Brandon, I don't think you've crossed the line of scrimmage in 8 games. And I said, if it's there, you need to convert a first down every now and then. And so I think he took off down the sideline, and he got so far he just finally ran out of bounds, because he could have got about 7 more yards. And he just realized that, I've run a long ways, and so get out of bounds.
Coach, not just the rushing, it seemed like his pocket presence was better. He stepped up in the pocket a few more times, extended plays, something
Much
earlier
better.
he was getting sacked.
Much better. Best he's been. The considerable improvement in that area.
As the rapid ascension of Blackman and Whedon, is that something you can use as a motivating factor for the rest of the players to say, here's what happens when you work hard, when you persevere?
Especially with Blackman, because Blackman's a tremendous practice player. And your quarterback is different because you're obviously not involved in the physical part of practice like the other guys are. Now, Brandon was really good after the Cotton Bowl all the way through with winter conditioning, really good. And spring ball, he was excellent. And then in the summer, he ran all the workouts himself. So that was a step up in a leadership role for him. But Blackman practices hard all the time. He competes every day. And those guys are great examples of what happens when you work at it. Good. All right.